Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and welcome to another Week in Review video, and this will go through the usual Week in Review stuff. I did have one question because I actually had a request that I thought was interesting. I'm certainly not against it, but it ultimately depends on what you want, which is someone mentioned that maybe in my Week in Reviews, maybe I should cover the games I played that week. Basically just going a quick overview, yesterday I played this, I played that, I got this to the table, and I'm down for it if it's something you want to hear. If it's not, then that's okay. I'm down with that too. But ultimately, let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see either before or after, either way will be timestamps of course, a summary of what I played that week, quick thoughts, notes, all of that stuff. But if you're interested, great. If not, not. And I will say, well, I'll save it, but we'll see. Either way, we'll see how that goes. And so starting off with Friday, and yes, Friday, because I had an unplanned video Friday, which I did after I filmed my Week in Review, so it wasn't in my official last week's video, but I had a video for Primal versus Monster Hunter World, and this is going to be effectively Steamforged Games dropped a ton of information about Monster Hunter World, and that was with 4 days left in the Primal campaign, and because of how much of a compare and contrast they are, I wanted to get that information out as soon as possible so people can make an informed choice about either backing Primal, jumping into Primal because of the information, stepping away from Primal, getting both, getting neither, whatever it is. And so I dropped a surprise video of Primal versus Monster Hunter World. For me, obviously, Primal is a clear and easy win. I have played and love Primal, and Monster Hunter World is just a concept that I am intrigued by. But I will likely end up getting both because there are enough things about Monster Hunter World that seem similar to the things I like about Primal that I'm intrigued. Whether it does it differently, better, worse, I don't know, we'll see. And Steamforged games generally hold their value even when their IPs have not done so well. At least initially, people are still hyped up and they want to get in on that train. So not much of a risk, and potentially another game that I really love, and so we'll see how that goes. Saturday, we had two reviews for Unicorn Fever and Carnegie. And for Unicorn Fever, I did a review with Ricky, and it's not a kid's game, but I reviewed it with Ricky because our first play was with Ricky. But it's one that I pulled out at game night as well, and it's one that is it's a solid game that is on the lighter side. Games like other games that are in the same genre, whatnot, are going to be, I don't know, Stockpile. I'd have to look around my shelf to see others. But there's lots of lighter games out there that are good for both, playing with older kids who know what they're doing, as well as playing at, with family, as well as playing with gateway gamers, as well as playing with game night when you are having, and I when I say game night, it's not meant to be dismissive. When I say game night, I mean my game night, which generally falls into the category of heavier games when we're playing, 2, 3, 4 hour long experiences that have a much heavier Board Game Geek weight rating in general. But that's just my game night, not meant to be pushing my own stances on yourself. But even at my own game night where we play heavier games, Unicorn Fever is one that will hit the table. Not one that I'd miss, but one that I like when it does come out. Carnegie is going to be a bit of a, on the other side of things. Carnegie is certainly a heavier game. Absolutely, if you're looking for heavy experiences, Carnegie's got you covered. It's very much a heavy experience. As far as whether it's a game for me or not, basically the short version is I don't like how core crunchy the base game is. I like more variability in my puzzle. I'm not looking to try to optimize through, whatever meaty thing you put in my way, unless you keep it interesting, unless you give me a reason to keep coming back. And that reason's either going to come from the huge degree of player interaction the game provides, or enough things that actually mix up the puzzle that I don't feel I'm constantly trying to play the same puzzle again and again and again. And Carnegie, while it does have a decent amount of player interaction, I would say for myself, given where I felt about the game, I need the extras that come in the Kickstarter for me to feel like it's a game for my collection. So the short version is I am interested in it, I am getting it, or backing on Kickstarter or whatnot, and I will be adding it to my collection, but only because of the variability that the Kickstarter extras provide. And to be clear, those Kickstarter extras will be available in retail as well, so if you're interested in that, you could get it at retail, but it will be separately available. So not necessarily an expansion, maybe a module, I don't know how it works, but ultimately I do recommend Carnegie, either as a heavy, meaty experience that you might be interested in, or as a heavy, meaty, variable experience if you pick up the extras. From there we had Sunday, which Sunday had two things going on. Sunday, first of all, I had a live Q&A with visits by trolls. This was actually very interesting for me. This was a lot of fun. Basically, I did my Q&A, which I've done before, and there must have been some sort of coordinated troll attack, because suddenly about 20 minutes or so into the Q&A, I suddenly started noticing comments show up on the sidebar. And basically, when I'm doing Q&As, I'm reading about 5 minutes behind or so and catching up on questions. But then because one time I lost audio and didn't realize for like 5 minutes, genuinely 5 minutes, people being like, no sound, because I'm 5 minutes back in the comments. So what I started doing is I started popping up on the side screen another window where I can be up to date, and occasionally I glance over just making sure that if I ever lose sound, it won't be for more than like a minute before I notice or whatnot. And I noticed suddenly a whole bunch of trolls popping up in the comments because a whole bunch of comments started showing up in all caps locks. And I'd say anti-Semitic, but honestly, I would just assume that they're just a bunch of teenagers or kids or who knows. I assume it was more for the effect than genuine anti-Semitism, but who really knows or cares? Ultimately, it was fun. I got, troll bombarded by a whole bunch of accounts trying to disrupt things, and thanks to Roy Canday from the Dice Tower, who said, "Hey, Alex, make some mods," which I never even knew you could do that. So midstream, I basically set 2 new mods and banned a bunch of trolls and got things into control, but it was fun, and now I have on my mental checklist before each live Q&A, set a moderator, just so, because ultimately, the disruption comes from the fact that there's a whole bunch of comments, and then I'm sidetracked trying to respond to things while keeping an eye out for the trolls, which is a disruption, practically speaking. So I just need to set some mods going forward, but it was a nice moment for me. And then later Sunday night was another nice moment for me because I got to be on the Dice Tower for the first time. And I've been watching Tom Vassell, I've been watching the Dice Tower crew since 2011. So this is it's a big deal for me. Practically speaking, it genuinely is a big deal for me to be on the same show with people who have been helping me inform my game choices for the past 10 years. And so it was cool. It was definitely a fanboy moment or whatnot. Very cool for me to be on the show. We were talking about statistics about, well, to be fair, some people pointed out, it's not statistics, it's data analysis. So yes, we were talking about data analysis of the top 100, covering different things, and apparently the segment did well. I mean, Tom and I both love data, and so we thought it would be like us and then 200 people on a Sunday night watching, because maybe 200, and maybe 200. But the video did really well. Lots of people interested, lots of people enjoyed seeing all the breakdowns of data to a degree, and got lots of feature requests. All these things will be taken into account because I will be doing I don't know if it's monthly, but I'll be doing a regular segment with Tom covering data. Sometimes it'll be, I think the next show might just be covering some of the requests we got about the last show. From there, it'll be variable. It might be about top 10 lists. It might be about more things we covered. I have a few dashboards I've already set up about interesting things that I think are intriguing. So if you have ideas, if you have things you would like to see, and it doesn't have to be about the Dice Tower, by the way. It could just be data analysis of, well, it has to be board game related, but it could be just, something to do with Board Game Geeks data or who knows what. But if you have an idea of something you'd like to see a breakdown on, then by all means, let me know in the comments down here, in the comments wherever, on the next video if you show up. But overall, I will be slowly gathering ideas to be able to do a regular monthly video covering all these different data things or whatnot, because I like data. I think it's interesting, and it was fun being on with Tom. It was genuinely a pleasure to interact back and forth and all in that. So that would be Sunday stuff. Monday is going to be a to back or not to back. For me, the standouts were probably Reload, Radlands, and Human Punishment. Those would be probably the standouts for me. I'd have to look at the video again to see what else was in there, but a whole bunch of Kickstarters, usual roundup. There'll be another roundup next week. We're back on track for regular Kickstarters every single day, never ever giving us a break, and so that was Monday. Monday as well, another double. We had a lot of doubles, so we have a lot of doubles going on this week. Monday as well is going to be a CoraQuest review, dropped later that day. The CoraQuest campaign went up. CoraQuest is a review I did with Ricky. Well, it's a game designed by Dan and Cora Hughes that is on Kickstarter right now. You can back it. It's effectively a family-friendly or family-weight dungeon crawl game, so go ahead and check that one out if you have kids who want to play dungeon crawls, or if you just want to support Dan and Cora Hughes. They literally designed this game because they were in lockdown. They're like, hey, let's design a board game. And then they were like, hey, this game is actually not that bad. Let's actually try to make this a real game accessible for other people as well. And it's doing tremendously well. 2,000 backers, closing in $100,000 at this point. I mean, I think they're like 80,000 or so, or wherever they're up to now. Although when you watch this, it might be further ahead. But they're doing well, and the game is pretty solid. And there's going to be a stretch goal of myself and Ricky are writing an adventure or a quest for the game. So if you keep that number rising, well, you might get to see that stretch goal adventure. Or because of the nature of stretch goals, you might see it either way. We'll see how that actually plays out. Anyways, from there it was going to be Tuesday. Tuesday was games leaving the collection, of which I think the two notable ones for me, and this is my monthly video where I talk about, well, board games that are leaving the collection, that are gone, that I've decided are not staying because I'm constantly adding board games, and I add board games faster than I add shelves, and so ultimately games have to leave. And so the two notable ones for me are going to be Sorcerer City, which is one that I still kind of want to keep, but I'm not sure how it plays out. Ultimately, what does happen, and this has happened I think twice now in the year I've been doing these collections, twice now there's a game that was supposed to leave and then didn't. Sometimes they get called back. And usually that happens because when I decide to get rid of a game, it goes onto a pile, which eventually either gets slowly sold off if people message me or if I sell it in Facebook groups, and then eventually the rest of that pile gets shipped off to BoardGameCo to deal with selling it through there. And so sometimes games in the leaving the collection video might be on my shelves for like up to 2 months after the video before it actually leaves the physical house. And there are times where games get played along that pathway, where games do get played and we experience them, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna actually keep that one. I'd have to remember what those 2 games were, but I know there's at least one. I don't remember what it was, but I have to look back on my lists. Monumental. Monumental is going to be at least one that I said was leaving my collection and then didn't, because Jeremy Howard ultimately, that one's actually different. Jeremy Howard convinced me to give it another go, and I did, and I was like, fine, I'll keep playing it. And so we'll see. We'll see how it actually plays out, but Sorcerer City is one that may get played before it leaves, because, I mean, I got enough comments, and I'm kind of on the fence about that one. I don't have the desire to play it at any given point, but I also think it's a good game when I think about it, so it's a tough one. And then the other standout for me is going to be Bloodborne. Bloodborne by CMON, and this is one that, it's a CMON game, so you see, I do get rid of CMON games. I'm not a complete fanboy. I mean, I am a complete fanboy, I just don't love everything they put out. But Bloodborne is one that I gave a shot, I gave it a try on TTS, and I just didn't feel the love. It felt like it was a solid game, and if you look at reviews, if you look at people playing it, I know people are enjoying it. It's not even a question, it's just people are enjoying it. But there are also people like myself who just aren't pulled in, and some of the game mechanics it has are game mechanics that I just don't like. So for instance, it has this resettable aspect where every time the time marker hits a point, all the enemies reset, making you feel like nothing you did matters. I mean, this is a bit of a off tangent, which is, you know, typical for me. But if you ever played Guild Wars or Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, which Guild Wars is my favorite video game I have ever played. Hands down, not even a question. And Guild Wars was such an amazing experience, but I love the original Guild Wars. I didn't love the original Guild Wars 2. I thought Guild Wars 2 was okay at best. And the difference between the two and why I like 1 versus 2, I can go on for a long time, but maybe I'll do a full dedicated video. I can't imagine why I do that. But Guild Wars 2, I'll say one thing I didn't like is Guild Wars 2 had, I think it's called instances. No, Guild Wars 1 had instances. Guild Wars 2 had a shared world, which basically means in Guild Wars 2, all the creatures constantly respawn, so you constantly have to re-kill them. Versus Guild Wars 1's had instant areas where you can actually kill every single creature in there. I like the sense of accomplishment of actually killing things. If you want to respawn things, but don't respawn it from a sense of an infinite, constantly being re-added respawn. Do it more like Zombicide, where you have things slowly entering and whatnot. But ultimately, this is a tangent. Bloodborne is a game that I think is solid, but not one that I think is for me. Wednesday was going to be Ignite, and why I backed Ignite, and that's basically the reason that the timing for that is I've been wanting to do that video for a while, but I've been holding off because I wanted to play it on TTS along with the designer, with Darren Tapestry, I think his name is, but otherwise, Ginger Snap Gaming, basically. And so I got my play in, really enjoyed it. It was exactly what I thought it would be, which is to say that it's a solid game, happy to have it in my collection, not blown away like, you know, I don't know, Primal, Endless Winter, any of these, but a solid deck builder that is fun. It's a fun deck builder. I could critique it, and I did critique it in my video, which I did, but, or more specifically, I critiqued it from a stance of who I think it wouldn't be for and why, but it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoy card comboing, I enjoy deck builders, I enjoy powers and abilities, and so all those things combined into a gameplay experience that I am excited. I did back it way back in the day before I played it, and it's one that I'm happy to have, and so, or happy to have coming, I guess. So that would be Ignite, why I backed it. Thursday is going to be Endless Winter Pledge Manager, and this is a thing for the channel, a milestone for the channel, in the sense that this is my first paid content ever. This was a sponsored video where Endless Winter reached out to me and said, hey Alex, you've done, you know, Pledge Manager videos before, we'd love to pay you for one. And I thought about it. To be very clear, I said, like, I'm happy to do it. I'll tell you that right now. In terms of taking money, I do have to think about it because there are consequences to taking money on the channel. There are consequences to the perception, and I do think it's perception. I've talked about this briefly in the past. I think bias is very much present no matter what. Bias is present if you're a decent person and you've talked with other people, then you're worried about the damage your words can cause. If you're a halfway decent human being, it's easier when they're strangers, but even then, it's still hard. But for sure, if you know them, for sure, if I've talked to a person and I'm about to say something negative about their game, it's hard. Money doesn't have to be involved for that. But the conversation of bias is always it's a scale. It's definitely a scale to a degree of to what end will things affect bias. Being paid for a review is usually the end of that scale, meaning just in general being a decent person will introduce bias, but usually the thing that is the most concrete is here's money to review our game will usually introduce the largest level of bias, or at least the largest level of bias perception. Again, I think bias is there all the time, but it's certainly a conversation worth having. And so then I'm not taking money for reviews. I'm not, at least not yet. I hope not to at all. Ideally, I don't want to take money for anything, although that's a balance, which is why I said yes to this one. But for myself right now, I think the line in the sand for myself is I don't want to take money for anything that involves my opinion of the game or even the perception of my opinion of the game. So for example, I don't want to take money for playthroughs. I don't want to take money for reviews. I don't want to take money for previews because I don't do previews. And the reason for that is because I don't want to do a playthrough of a game, a paid playthrough, and then you're kind of waiting for my thoughts and feelings and I'm not going to share them. I don't want to do that right now. And again, to be very clear, I honestly, and this one of those things is tough, but I think this is more about managing my perceptual relationship with you, with the audience, with anyone watching my videos. For myself, I think the bias is there because I'm a halfway decent human being. I don't think the money introduces as much of a bias. I'd rather turn down money for a game that I didn't like and just say, you know what, I'm not going to cover this because I just didn't like it. But there's still a perceptual aspect that I have to manage, as well as, of course, actual biases is as well a thing. So ultimately for this one, I decided to do it because, again, long term, my goal is to make it in the space, and as much as Patreon and ads are great, they are a part of, unless this channel like really grows and develops, which it is, by the way. And if I can get this to a point where I don't have to take money at all, then I'll do so. But it is something I thought about not briefly, I thought about it for a few days, and eventually I got back to them and said, fine, I will do it as a paid video, more so that other creators or publishers know that this is something I'm willing to do as a paid feature, so if other people want a pledge manager or whatnot. So right now, for myself, I'm currently willing to take money for things that are not related to the game itself, pledge manager coverage, reviewing a Kickstarter page, all those things. As usual, I will be transparent. If I ever cover a campaign, and this is something I'll tell you right now, just you and me or whatnot, if I ever cover a campaign with a should you back it video or anything about it, and I took money to, let's say, review their Kickstarter page beforehand and give them advice, feedback, or whatnot, I will tell you. I will give you that disclaimer that, hey, this video I'm doing now, not a sponsored video, but just so you know, I do have a working relationship with this company. So any working relationships I have with them, I will try to be as transparent as I possibly can. My goal is to balance being able to sustain this as a full-time job down the road, while also ensuring that the bias is as minimal as I possibly can to whatever degree. And again, there will be there. I mean, again, it will, like the next time I review a game from Fantasia Games, factor in I have a paid relationship with them now. So, full transparency. That would be Thursday. Thursday was an endless winter should you back it, not should you back it. Thursday was an endless winter pledge manager video, which I just went through the bias aspect, but effectively I went through the pledge manager. That was Thursday. And then Friday. Friday was the 2021 Kickstarter games that I'm looking forward to be more specific, it's not the Kickstarter campaigns I'm looking forward to, it's the actual games hitting my shelves in 2021 based on games that seem to be landing in 2021. And the highlight for me of this was I did this together with Thinker Themer. I reached out to them and said, hey, I have a follow-up video to my 2021 retail games. I'd love to do the Kickstarter one with you because I know you're both Kickstarter addicts, although Amy more than Maggie. But ultimately, that was one that I did with them, and so that was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun doing that one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm filming this before that video goes up, so we'll find out if you enjoyed it later. But that is basically the week. Today is this video. Coming up later today, we're going to have a review for Cloaked Cats at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then later today is a review for Tapestry coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Tapestry one is a 95% because it is not actually filmed yet and I'm running out of time to film it. I have all my notes, I have the game set up, I have all the stuff ready to go. Haven't actually filmed it yet, so probably will be there. But if it's not, well, you know what happened. And then coming up next week, there's going to be a whole bunch of things. Some of them are tentative, so I don't know. There will almost certainly be some Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising stuff, maybe a playthrough, a review. We'll see how it actually plays out or whatnot. There will likely be some Bloodstone stuff coming up, so I actually have, you know what, give me a second here. There we go. Bloodstone. Should have put this in the shot. That would have been fun. So we got a Bloodstone game coming. We got some Bloodstone stuff happening next week. We'll see how that goes. This is going to be hitting Kickstarter. This is Kickstarter exclusive. Pay attention to that. Kickstarter exclusive. I've already played this. We'll be playing it some more. Played on TTS. It is, oh my gosh, I like this game. I'll give you a heads up right now. But one play so far. We'll be getting some more plays and we'll see what coverage happens there. And then I will have a what I backed in December and January video coming up later this week. I actually was supposed to have that this past week, but I filmed it and it went up with no sound at all. Apparently I did not turn my mic on, and so I had to refilm it, which I have successfully done now, and it will be showing up next week. Past that, things will vary. Full schedule as always is on my Patreon, and so that is basically it. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. I hope you have a good weekend. I certainly plan on, and as always, have a good one.